So those, and it was so nice to hear wonderful chanting by the devotees very clearly. Those spiritual warriors who made our journey successful was Patit Pavan Prabhu, Amol and Smita Panchpande, Sachinandan Krishna Prabhu, Shitala Priya Devidasi, Girivaridhari Prabhu, Raghav Chaitanya Prabhu, Hanuman Prabhu, Manani Mataji, Rohit Mishra Prabhu, Manmatha Anand Prabhu, Shundri Radha Mataji, Tapti Ghosh Mataji, Janki Khan Prabhu, Labanga Latika Mataji, Prathmesh Prabhu, Shriya Devidasi, Sumitra Radha Mataji, Devendra Krishna Prabhu, Divyansan Saloni, Swedi Prabhu, Parmanand Hari Prabhu, Nandan Priya Devidasi, Nadia Kumar Prabhu, Rag Bhakti Devidasi, Kamini Priya Mataji, Sankarsan and Manjari, Pandurang Devdas Prabhu, Damodarati Mataji, Uttam Bhakta Prabhu, Vallabhi Mataji, Rajendra Prabhu, Kasturi Manjari Devidasi, Pranath Gopal Prabhu, Radhika Prem Devidasi, Braj Vinod Prabhu, Anand Vinodini Mataji, Madhvi Gopi Mataji. Today we didn't see Namanan Prabhu, Haribol. Tulsi Priya Mataji, Kamal Priya Mataji, Abhay Joshi Prabhu, Madhav Charan Prabhu, Ananya Bhakti Devidasi, Amal Nam Prabhu, Karuna Mayu Devidasi, Barsana Rani Mataji, Vijay Keshav Prabhu, Rashmi Mataji, Kirti Prabhu, Mahati Konda, Radha Vallabh Prabhu, Radha Charan Prabhu, Ravi Pipilia Prabhu, Kamlesh Dingra Mataji, Sugandh Raj Prabhu, Aradhana Devidasi, Manoj Kapoor Prabhu, Balram Prabhu, Abhay Charan Prabhu, Sukruti Devidasi, Sri Kumar Prabhu, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, Harikatha Devidasi, Pitambar Priya Prabhu, Hemangani Chauhan Mataji didn't join, neither Nissan Sharma. Sumit Prabhu also didn't join. Karunya Murti Devidasi, Prem Priya Padma Mataji, Amit Prabhu, Nakul Grover Prabhu, Sarmista Sahi, and also Kanta Mataji didn't join. So those are the spiritual warriors who joined today. Ajay Govinda Prabhu joined, sorry. So let's hear the song and then we will read the history of the Rath Yatra in ISKCON. Hare Krishna.
कदाचित् कालिन्दे तटविपिन सङ्गीतकरावो मुदाभिरीनारी वदन कमलाश्वदमधूपा रमा शम्भु ब्रह्मा मरपति गणेशाचितपदो जगन्नाथ स्वामी सवे वेणुं शिरसि शिखि पुच्छं कटितटे दुकूलं नेत्रान्ते सहचर कटाक्षं विदधते सदा श्रीमद्वृन्दावन वसति लीला परिचयो जगन्नाथ स्वामी स्थिरे कनकरुचिरे नीलशिखरे वसन् प्रसादान्त सहज बलभद्रेण बलिना सुभद्रमध्यस्थ सकल सुरसेवा वस भावं प्रतिपदमुपकरण्य सदया दया सिन्धुर्बन्धु सकल जगतां सिन्धु सुतया जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे परं ब्रह्मापीड कुवलयदलोत्फुल्लनयनो निवासि नीलाद्रो निहितचरणोऽनन्तशिरसि रसानन्दिराधा सरसवपुरालिङ्गनसुखो जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे न वै याचे राजन् न च कनकमाणिक्यविभवम् न याचेऽहं रम्यं सकलजनकाम्यं वरवधू सदा काले काले प्रमथपतिना गीतचरितो जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे हरत्वं संसारं धृतरम् असारं सुरपते हरत्वं पापानां विततिमपारं यतव पते अहो दीननाथे निहितचरणो निश्चितमिदम् जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे जगन्नाथ अष्टकं पुण्यं यः पठेत् प्रयत शुचिः सर्वपापविशुद्धात्मा विष्णुलोकं स गच्छति
Thank you very much, Raghav Chaitanya Prabhu, for playing a wonderful narration of the Jagannath Ashtakam. So we will read the history, how the Rath Yatra came into in ISKCON movement. It was, I think, in 1967. The first deity of Jagannath Baldev and Subhadra in ISKCON were discovered in San Francisco, 1967. One of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, Malti Dasi and Shyam Sundar Prabhu. So Malti Dasi saw a small figure in an import store, Cost Plus, and brought it to Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada saw the figure, his eyes opened wide. He folded his palms and bowed his head in respect. Then he said, "You have brought Lord Jagannath, the Lord of the universe. He is Krishna." So he said that the Lord Jagannath was worshipped with two other deities, his brother Balram and his sister Subhadra. So Malti Mataji confirmed that there were other similar figure at the store, and Prabhupada asked her to go back and buy them. So Malti Mataji went with her husband Shyamsundar Prabhu and immediately went and brought the other two figures. Srila Prabhupada placed them with Lord Jagannath on his desk and told the devotees about Jagannath appearance in India thousands of years ago and how he was still worshipped in a great temple in Puri and taken in an annual processions with his brother and sister, each in a huge chariot in the Rath Yatra festival. Prabhupada chanted, Jagannath Swami Nayanapatagami Bhavatu Me. O Lord of the universe, kind be visible unto me. And he said that henceforth San Francisco should be called New Jagannath Puri. Srila Prabhupada asked if any of the devotees knew how to carve. And Shyamsundar Prabhu said that he did. So Prabhupada requested him to carve 3-foot high replicas of the small Jagannath Balram and Subhadra that Shyamsundar Prabhu and Malti Mataji got from the store. So Shyamsundar Prabhu got 3 large blocks of wood and following sketch and directions that Prabhupada gave him, carved the first large deity of Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra in the West. Then Prabhupada said that the devotees should hold a Rath Yatra festival. So following Prabhupada instruction, Shyam Sundar Prabhu and others arranged a flatbed truck on which they erected 5 tall columns and covered them with cloth to serve as a canopy over the deities. And then they decorated the chariot with flowers. The devotees didn't have many vehicles then, and those they did have were pretty old and not function properly and unpredictable in their performance. So at the time, Srila Prabhupada was unwell, and the devotees had rented a place for him to recuperate at nearby Stinson Beach. Although he was unable to attend the festival, the devotees, along with the Rath Yatra truck, the deities, and some hippies, came to visit him the next day. They were excited and eager to report that Shyamsundar Prabhu explained that while he had been driving the truck up a steep hill, the truck has stalled, and that although he had tried to start the engine, he hadn't been able to. Then the brakes has failed, and the truck had begun to roll backwards down the hill. Finally, he had been able to stop it, but when he had tried to move forward again, the engine had stalled and the truck had rolled backwards. Again, he would get it started and the truck would go forward. The engine would stall and the truck would roll backwards. The situation had seemed hopeless, and the devotees had wondered if they would be able to finish the parade. But somehow they had, and they had come to give the report to Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada told them the story of how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had celebrated the Rath Yatra in Puri. He said that in Puri too, the chariot would stop, even with thousands of people pulling the ropes. The king would order powerful wrestlers and elephants to push the chariot, but still it wouldn't move. Finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would put his head on the back of the chariot and push, and only then would the chariot move. Quote, now that Rath Yatra has come to the West, unquote. Srila Prabhupada said, quote, this pastime has come to, unquote. Krishna make wonderful arrangement. Rath Yatra is an ancient festival in Jagannath Puri, and in ISKCON history, it began here in San Francisco in 1967 on a flatbed truck. From what that first Rath Yatra, the festival has been celebrated yearly, not only in San Francisco, but also in many other major cities throughout the world. According to the Skan Purana, the history of the installation of the Jagannath deities in Puri goes back about 153 million years. Although there is a history of how the deities came to be carved in the shapes in which they now appear, actually Lord Jagannath and his associates are eternal. His being carved is just a pastime to facilitate his manifestation on the earth. As Srila Prabhupada explains, quote, fire is already present in wood, but by a certain process, fire is kindled. Similarly, God is all-pervading. He is everywhere. And since he may come out from everything, he appeared, Lord Narasimha appeared from the pillar of the Hiranyakasipu's palace. Lord Varahadeva appeared from the nostril of Brahma, and Lord Kapil appeared from the semen of Kardama Muni. But this does not mean that the nostril of Brahma or the pillar of Hiranyakasipu's palace or the semen of Kardama Muni is the source of the appearance of the Lord. The Lord is always the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 324.6. So Lord Jagannath is eternal, just as Krishna is eternal. Although Krishna had his appearance pastime in the prison house of Kamsa, he resides eternally on his spiritual planet, Goloka Vrindavan. And he eternally manifests his pastimes within the material world. Lord Jagannath also has an eternal planet in the spiritual sky. He is the source of all incarnations, and he appeared in whatever form his devotees wants to see him. Sometimes in Puri, the pujaris dress him as a demigod, such as Ganesh, with an elephant trunk. That is also to confirm the philosophical principle that by worshipping Lord Jagannath, Krishna, one worships all the demigods automatically. All the demigods are included in Jagannath, and all the expansions of Godhead are included. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, see Lord Jagannath as Krishna. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Jagannath in Puri, he would see Krishna, Shyam Sundar. The appearance of Lord Jagannath also is mentioned in the Skan Purana. As recounted there, Lord Jagannath tell King Indradumna, who had the first Jagannath deities carved and who built the first great temple for Lord Jagannath in Puri, that he appeared on the full moon day of the month of Jyeshtha, being pleased with the king's devotion and sacrifices. It is on this date every year that Shyan Yatra, the public bathing of the Lord Jagannath, is held. For the Shyan Yatra in Puri, Lord Jagannath is brought into public view on a rooftop or terrace or a great temple and bathe them. Then, as it is said, the Lord catches the cold and removed his private quarters, the quarters of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who for 2 weeks shows him hand and foot. Of course, that is another question about his hands and feet. A disciple one asked Srila Prabhupada, quote, we are told to meditate on the deity beginning with the lotus feet. But how do we begin our meditation on Lord Jagannath? He doesn't have a feet. And Srila Prabhupada replied, quote, you can meditate on whatever you can see, quote, unquote. Advanced devotee can see Lord Jagannath's lotus feet. That's the point Prabhupada was saying. There are philosophical principles and specific pastimes that account for why he has no feet or hands, or why they are not visible. The Upanishads say that the Lord has no legs, but that he can overcome all others running. No hands or feet really means that he has no material hands or feet. He has spiritual hands and spiritual feet. Still in ecstasy, he sometimes withdraws his limbs and widens his eyes. So Krishna has so much love for the residents of Vrindavan that even in Dwarka, in the middle of the night, he would sometimes call the names of the cowherd boys and cows, or of Srimati Radharani and the gopis, or of his mother and father, Nanda and Yashoda. Sometimes he would be so overwhelmed with aesthetic love for the residents of Vrindavan that he would not eat or sleep. It was a mystery to the residents of Dwarka. Quote, who are these special people? And what is this special place, Vrindavan? What happened when Krishna was there in his childhood that makes him so attached to them and Vrindavan Dham? Unquote. One person in Dwarka had been present in Vrindavan for Krishna's childhood pastimes, Rohini Devi, the mother of Balram. Like Devaki, she was a wife of Vasudev's, but with all the atrocities being committed by King Kamsa, Vasudev had arranged for her to stay in Braj with Nand and Yasoda, who were relatives and family friends. By the arrangement of Yogmaya, Balram had been transferred from the womb of Devaki in Mathura to womb of Rohini in Vrindavan. And Rohini had been present for all of Balram's and Krishna's childhood pastimes there. Wanting to hear about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, the residents of Dwarka asked, quote, who are these special people? What is this special place? Unquote. She said, quote, I will tell you, but no one should disturb me while I'm speaking. Unquote. So they all assemble in a large hall in Dwarka, and Subhadra was posted at the door to make sure that no one entered. But she too wanted to hear about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. So she put her ear to the door, hearing the pastimes. She became ecstatic, and in her ecstasy, her eyes opened wide. Her mouth smiled broadly, and her limbs withdrew into her body. She assumed the future that we see today in the deity of Subhadra. So then Krishna and Balram came and saw Subhadra with her ear to the door and with those aesthetic features. And they thought, quote, let us also hear what is being said inside. So they put their ears to the door. And when they heard the pastimes, they too became ecstatic and assumed their own particular features, with their limbs withdrawn and their eyes open wide and their mouths in broad smiles. So that is how the Lordship came to assume these spatial forms. So after the Sun Yatra, Snana Yatra, Lord Jagannath returns for 15 days, during which time Lakshmi saw him day and night. In particular, she prepares various medicinal beverages represented by fruit juice to help him recover from his illness. After 2 weeks, Lord Jagannath feels better and he feels separation from his other devotees. And so, taking permission from the goddess of fortune, he embarked on a journey, yatra, in a chariot, rath, to see them. When he doesn't come back after 3 or 4 days, especially since he had indicated that he would be gone for only one, she becomes restless and impatient. Just imagine Lakshmi shows him hand and foot for 2 weeks. He said that he want to go out for the afternoon to see his other devotees. And days pass and he doesn't come home. So she exhibits an extraordinary type of transcendental jealous pride and anger, man. And with all opulences, she proceeds with her maidservant in a procession to Sundarchal to bring back Lord Jagannath. So the Rath Yatra begins at the Jagannath temple in Nilachal and proceeds to the Gundicha temple in Sundarchal. Nilachal represents Dwarka, where Krishna lives as a king and is worshipped in opulence, and Sundarchal represents Vrindavan, where Krishna is loved simply as a cowherd by the son of Nand and Yashoda. So during the year, the Gundicha temple, named after the wife of King Indradumna, is empty and naturally dust and dirt accumulate. In India, most temples have an open style of architectures. So the day before Rath Yatra is Gundicha Marjan. And on that day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associate would thoroughly clean the Gundicha temple as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu would gather thousands of men and together they would clean the temple. First, with thousands of brooms, they would sweep it twice and then they would wash it with thousands of parts of water. They didn't have hoses then, only pots. They would fill thousands of pots with water and wash the temple inside and out just to make the temple fit for the Lord. So metaphorically, the cleansing of the Gundicha temple is the cleansing of the heart to make it a fit place for the Lord. And that's why holy name is so kind, that through the holy name it cleanses our heart, make a suitable place so Krishna can reside. Such cleansing is effected by hearing and chanting about Krishna. Shravanam Swakatha Krishna. Shravanam Swakatha Krishna. Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. Rudi Antastahi Abradhani. Vidhunoti Shruhat Satam. Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 17. When a sincere devotee, Satam, hears the message of Krishna, all the dirty, inauspicious things, Abhadrani, in the heart, Hrudayantaha, are cleansed, Vidunoti. Similarly, by attentive chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Lord, Sankirtan, one's consciousness is also purified. Chetodarpanam Arjanam. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers cleansed the Gundicha temple to make it a fit place for the Lord to reside. And as Srila Prabhupada often said, when you clean the temple, you clean your heart. So 5 days after the Rath Yatra, when Lord Jagannath does not return, the goddess of fortune comes out in full force and with her maidservants marches on the Gundicha temple. And her maidservants arrest the servant of the Lord Jagannath and bring them before her. They beat the Rath cord with sticks and treat the servant like thieves, ridiculing and abusing them. They say, quote, "What is wrong with your master? He abandoned the opulence of the goddess of fortune for the sake of a flower garden, a few leaves and the fruit and flowers. What is wrong with him? Now bring him before the goddess of fortune." Unquote. Okay, okay, they reply. Whatever you say, tomorrow we shall bring him. So thus pacified, Lakshmi returned to her abode, and Lord Jagannath eventually comes. Not the next day, but 4 days later in the return Rath Yatra. All this is very nice, but for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was in the mood of Srimati Radharani in separation from Krishna, the highest level of aesthetic love in separation, to not see Lord Jagannath for 2 weeks was unbearable. And he almost went mad. When he had first arrived in Puri and entered the temple and seen the deity of Jagannath, he had thought, "Here is my Lord, for whom I have been searching." He had run to embrace Jagannath, Krishna, and fainted in the ecstasy of pure love. So for him to have achieved the Lord of his life and then lost him when Jagannath went into seclusion was intolerable. He could not remain in Puri, and so he walked 14 miles west by foot to Alarnath, in an area called Brahmagiri, which is named after Lord Brahma, because Brahma is said to have come to earth and installed the deity of Lord Narayan, worshipped there. But how could Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was in the mood of Radharani, who knows no one other than Krishna, find solace by going to Alarnath to see a four-handed deity of Lord Narayan? Further, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first saw the deity and offered prostrate obeisances, the stone slab on the temple floor beneath him got melted. In the Jagannath temple, there is a pillar called the Garuda Stam, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to stand to have darshan of the Jagannath. And there are imprints of his fingers on the pillar and of his lotus feet on the floor, where in great ecstasy he would behold Lord Jagannath. But in Alarnath, we find the unique impression of his entire body, which melted the stone when he prostrated himself in extreme ecstasy. This is all very mysterious. And we have seen in the Charan Pahadi in Vrindavan, there is a lot of footprints. When he played the flute, stone get melted and they got the imprints. Once during his springtime Rasalila at Govardhan Hill, Sri Krishna disappeared from the scene, suggesting that he wanted to be alone with Sri Radha. He hid in a secluded bush, waiting for her to pass by. But in the meantime, the other gopis came looking for him. They all were in the mood of separation, mad in separation from Krishna, mad in love for Krishna, having been attracted by his transcendental beauty, his charming gestures, and his loving words. They were searching all over Govardhan for him, and finally they sighted him in the bush. When he saw them, Krishna became struck with emotion. He could not hide himself, and so he assumed his four-armed Narayan form. When the gopis saw Lord Narayan, they said, "Oh, he's not Krishna, he's Lord Narayan," and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They had no interest in Lord Narayan. So they were interested only in Krishna. So they offered him respect and prayed, quote, "Please bless us with Krishna's association," unquote. Otherwise, they had to use for him. They went on searching for Krishna. Then when Srimati Radharani came, Krishna wanted to maintain his form arm form to joke with her. But although he tried his best, he was unable to do so. Remember, I think one place I visited in Vrindavan that where he showed his opulence to all the gopis. And when Radharani came, then he was unable to maintain his four form, Narayan form. And that's from that place there is a tunnel that goes to the Jatipur. So Krishna hide in that tunnel. Wonderful pastimes. So they went on searching for Krishna. And then when Srimati Radharani came, Krishna wanted to maintain and joke with her, but although he tried his best, he was unable to do so. The influence of her aesthetic love forced him to return to his original true arm form. That's the strength of Srimati Radharani's love. He couldn't maintain his future as Lord Narayan, and he was conquered by Srimati Radharani's love, and so revealed his original form as Krishna. Rasham Rambha Vidhu Nilaya Vasata Kunje Mrugrusi Ganeir Drustam Gopayitam Swam Udduradhyaya Sustu Sandarsita Radhayah Pranayasya Hanta Mahima Yasya Shriyo Raksutam So Sakya Prabhavisno Api Harina Nasik Chatur Bahuta. Prior to the Ras dance, Lord Krishna hid himself in a grove just to have fun. And when the gopis came, their eyes resembling those of deer, by his sharp intelligence, he exhibited his beautiful forearm form to hide himself. But when Srimati Radharani came there, Krishna could not maintain his forearm in her presence. This is the wonderful glory of her love. Ujjwal Nilamani, Naika Veda 7. Transcendentally, Alarnath in Lord Chaitanya's Lila in Puri is compared to Paitha at Govardhan. It is a place of intense separations. The gopis in separation from Krishna roam the forest there looking for him. And Paitha is the place where Lord Narayan wasn't really Lord Narayan. He was actually Krishna, assuming the form of Narayan to play a joke on the gopis and to bring out their exclusive love for him. Thus, although the external form of the deity of all Lord Alarnath is that of the form of Narayan, internally he is Krishna. And the pujari of Alarnath admit that in their worship, that they recite very confidential mantras to Krishna, the lover of Srimati Radharani. So during those 14 days called Anvasanasara, Anvasara, Anvasara, when Lord Jagannath retires to his private quarters and receives service from Lakshmi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in separation stays in Alarnath. So there are many deep feelings connected to Rath Yatra. This whole pastimes, like all the pastime of Jagannath in Puri, is very deep and full of separation. Jagannath Puri is Vipralamba Dham. Vipralamba means separation. Lord Jagannath in his opulent temple feels separation from Srimati Radharani and his other pure devotees in Vrindavan and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Srimati Radharani after Krishna left Vrindavan for Mathura and Dwarka also feels separation. So Jagannath Puri is a place of crying, but that crying is ecstasy, and that's why half of the life, 18 years, last 18 years, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent in the Gambhira. That separation is ecstasy. It is not what we experience in the material world, like how the gopi used to remember Krishna constantly, even in the union and in separation. Because in the separation, when Krishna is not there, all the gopis will start talking about the pastime they perform in the past. And when they remember those past times, they feel his presence like that. So they never miss sight of Lord Sri Krishna. So after this period of separation, when Lord Jagannath finally leaves his private quarters, he emerges from the temple and mounts his chariot. And for the first time in 2 weeks, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the other devotees are able to see him. So they become ecstatic. And in the Rath Yatra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radharani, bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. As described in Srimad Bhagavatam, after Krishna has been living as a king in Dwarka for many, many years, he was informed that there was going to be a solar eclipse. To observe the eclipse, Krishna announced that he would go to Kurukshetra, a holy place, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, in North India. The Vedas recommend that one go to Kurukshetra to perform the various rituals associated with eclipse, to bathe in the sacred waters, perform sacrifice, give charity, and so on. And when the news reached the residents of Vrindavan that Krishna was going to Kurukshetra, they thought, quote, let us go too, unquote. They weren't interested in the ritual baths or ceremonies. They were interested only in Krishna. Since he had left Vrindavan, they had been feeling intense separation. Their only business has been crying for Krishna. They decided, quote, we shall also go, unquote. And so they went. It was a very touching scene when Krishna met the residents of Vrindavan, heart-rending, although he first met the elders, beginning with Nanda and Yasoda. Same thing Uddhava did when he visited Vrindavan, when Krishna sent him. He met first Nand Maharaj and Yasoda, and gradually gopis, and finally met with Srimati Radharani. So in the beginning, he met Yasoda, Nand and Yasoda and their associate. Within his heart, he was thinking of Radharani and the gopis. So he took an opportunity to steal away from the others to meet them. Yet, although Radha was seeking Krishna, it wasn't the same. She said, quote, you are same Krishna and I'm the same Radha, but it's not the same here. Please come back to Vrindavan. Here there are crowds of people, elephants and horses, and the rattling of chariots. In Vrindavan, there are flower gardens and the chirping of the birds and the humming of the bees. Here you are dressed like a royal prince with all sorts of opulent paraphernalia, accompanied by great warriors. In Vrindavan, you appear just like a cowherd boy, dressed in a yellow dhoti, pitambar, and decorated with a peacock feather, accompanied only by your flute. Here in Kurukshetra, there is not even a drop of ocean of transcendental happiness that I enjoy with you in Vrindavan. So please come back to Vrindavan and let us relish pastime as we did in our youth. Unquote. So in that mood of Srimati Radharani, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing in front of the Lord Jagannath in the Rath Yatra would recite a verse from a romantic poem. Ya Kumara Hara sa eva hi varaste eva chaitra kshapas te kanmiltita malati surabhaya praudha kadam banilaha. So chaivasmi tathapi tatra surata vyapara lila vido reva rodasi vetasi taru tale cheta samukta kanthate. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit lights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of Malti flower is there. and the same sweet breeze are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I'm also the same lover. Yet, still, my mind is not happy here. I'm eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva under the Vetasa tree. That is my desire. Padyavali 386 Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 1.58 and 13.121. That emotional pulling of Krishna from Kurukshetra to Vrindavan is the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Rath Yatra. There is so much reciprocation between Lord Chaitanya and the Lord Jagannath based on Srimati Radharani and the gopis pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. Sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go ahead and Lord Jagannath, astonished by the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, would stop his chariots to watch. Sometimes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would stay behind the chariot and eventually Lord Jagannath would stop. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come forward and then Lord Jagannath would move forward too. E mata gaura shyame, done thela theli, swarathe, swa mere rakhe, gaura mahabali. Thus there was a sort of competition between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath in seeing who would lead, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so strong that he made Lord Jagannath wait in his car. Madhya Lila 13.119. Srila Prabhupada, citing Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's commentary, explained that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's leading Lord Jagannath toward the Gundicha temple correspond to Srimati Radharani's leading Krishna toward Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's following at the rear of the chariots indicated that Lord Jagannath, Krishna, was forgetting the inhabitants of Vrindavan. In the role of Srimati Radharani, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was examining whether the Lord still remembered the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Quote, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell behind the Rath cart, Jagannath Dev, Krishna himself, understood the mind of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, Jagannath sometimes fell behind the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to indicate to Srimati Radharani that he had not forgotten. Thus, Lord Jagannath would stop the forward march of the Rath and wait at standstill. While Jagannath was thus waiting, Gaura Sundar Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his ecstasy of Srimati Radharani, immediately came forward to Krishna. And at such times, Lord Jagannath would proceed ahead very slowly. These competitive exchanges were all part of the love affair between Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Madhya Lila 13.119. Ultimately, Jagannath reaches Vrindavan, the Gundicha temple, and there is so much feeling in these festivals. Now we shall read about the Stan Yatra from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, not only to hear directly from Srila Prabhupada about Snan Yatra, but also to realize what an unlimited wealth of knowledge of nectar exists in Prabhupada books. I'm going to read 4 or 5 verses out of hundreds and thousands, and yet in just few verses, there is so much nectar. So due to the time restraint, I'm not going to recite the verse, I'm just going to read the translation. We shall read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 1, the later pastime of Lord Chaitanya. In verse 121, the author Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that Lord Chaitanya witnessed the Snan Yatra festival. He then continues. When Jagannath was absent from the temple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who could not see him, felt separation and left Jagannath Puri to go to a place known as Alalanath. Alalanath is also known as Brahmagiri. This place is about 14 miles from Jagannath Puri and also on the beach, and there is a temple of Jagannath there. At the present moment, a police station and the post office are situated there because so many people come to see the temple. The word Annavasara is used when Sri Jagannath Ji cannot be seen in the temple. After the bathing ceremony, Sanyatra, the Lord Jagannath apparently becomes sick and is therefore removed to his private apartment where no one can see him. Actually, during this period, renovations are made on the body of the Jagannath deity. This is called Navyavana. Navyavana means ever fresh or always youthful. At this time, the Jagannath deity is fully restored to the youth. During the Rayatra ceremony, Lord Jagannath once again comes before the public. Thus, for 15 days after the bathing ceremony, Lord Jagannath is not visible to any visitors. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained for some days as Alananath. In the meantime, he received news that all the devotees from Bengal were coming to Jagannath Puri. Every year, the devotees from Bengal would travel by foot to Jagannath Puri for the Rayatratra and the 4 months of the rainy season called Chaturmas. And when the devotees from Bengal arrived at the Jagannath Puri, both Nityanand Prabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya greatly endeavored to take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back to Jagannath Puri. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally left Alanandanath to return to Jagannath Puri, he was overwhelmed both days and night due to separation from Jagannath. His lamentation knew no bounds. During this time, all the devotees from different parts of Bengal and especially from Navadvip arrived at Jagannath Puri. And after due consideration, all the devotees began chanting the holy name congregationally. Lord Chaitanya's mind was thus pacified by the ecstasies of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this is a very important lesson. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in such a deep separation from Lord Jagannath that he could not do anything or think of anything else. Finally, the devotee decided to perform kirtan, and by chanting the holy name of Krishna, who is Lord Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt pacified because he was experiencing the association of Jagannath through the holy name. So if he really wants to please Lord Jagannath, we should really chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra more and more and make our life successful. So with those thoughts, always remain happy, jubilant, and totally fearless. And whoever you come across, give them a kind word that their life can also become successful. I also would like to welcome, you know, Suchitra Mataji and also Kanta Mataji who joined late. So also, I would like to offer my humble obeisances at the desk of these wonderful devotees that who take so much austerity to join every morning from Houston, from India, from New Jersey, from Boston, Virginia, Boise, St. Louis, Alachua, Montreal, College Station, San Jose, Tempe, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, Detroit, and Brampton, Ontario. Vanchakalpatarubhasya
कृपा सिंधु पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, गुरु महाराज की जय, शिल प्रभुपाद की जय, श्याम सुंदर प्रभु की जय। हरे कृष्ण प्रभु।
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Pranam.
Day to
Thank
chant
you.
rounds.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Jai Jagannath Rodaya.
Hari Bol, Hari
Jai Jagannath. Jai Jagannath.
Hari Krishna. Thank you very much, all of you. Have a very blissful day. And by Krishna's so desire, we will see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dhanushana. Hare Bol.